What's good, everybody? This is I Don't Know Podcast. I Don't Know Podcast. I Don't Know Podcast. I am the. Oh, shoot. What's up, everybody? This is the I Don't Know Podcast. I am your host, calebkwizera. What's good, everybody? This is Caleb, your host. This is the I Don't Know Podcast. I appreciate you so much for tuning in. I'm grateful for you guys for choosing again and again to click the link to come on the Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube to catch on what the Lord is doing, on what is happening here on the I Don't Know Podcast. It's a great thing that's happening. We've done 2 episodes already, and I've received good feedbacks from you guys. I appreciate you so much. And just to let you know, it's not even me doing that. It's I feel like it's God doing that through me and the obedience. So I have to be transparent at all times to let you know that it's not me. And if you think that's a noble thing, you don't know what God can do through your obedience. So if you need to, um, if you feel like there's something God is telling you, if you know you are called, if you know you are chosen, there's nothing important that saying yes to God. Literally, the Bible says obedience is better than sacrifice. So I know I'm just getting deep on the first 1 second, but that's crazy. So I appreciate you so much. Today, you don't know who we have in the studio. Guess who? Man, I've met this person at church. I'll let her introduce. Did I? I think
You
so.
didn't meet me at church.
For real?
No.
Okay, we're gonna. All right,
Where
all
did I
right.
meet you? It wasn't
Okay.
at church though. I re-met you at church, and I was like, "Wait, you
Wow.
go here?"
True.
Because it's
That's
such
right.
a big church. I'm
That's
like,
right.
"Wait."
Okay.
I think I
So-
met you. What, Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was at that.
At the volleyball.
It was at that girl's house who was going on a missions trip to Spain.
No.
To Spain.
I think
Dude,
I think we met at the volleyball Saturday thing for
Victory.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. But I feel like
Churches
that was
unite.
Yeah, but I feel like that wasn't the first time we saw each other. That's just the first time we introduced ourselves to each other because
I don't know.
I
It's the
had
first
seen
time I
you
saw
at church.
you. Maybe
Oh.
you've seen me, but
Alright, okay.
I'm like,
All right, okay.
elsewhere.
So back to the introduction.
Sorry.
You're good. So yeah, I met her in either at church or at a volleyball or at somebody's house or da da da. So yeah, man. So I felt like it was. I reached out to her to ask her if she would be down to be on the pod, and she said yes, man. And I appreciate you so much for coming on the podcast. By the way, for your information, you are the first guest on this pod.
I
How
feel
do you
so
feel?
special. I'm surprised it's your third podcast
It is.
too. I was like, wow, third time's a charm. Look at that. I'm charming. Anyways,
So yeah, tell us about yourself. Tell us your
yeah.
name, who you are.
So I am Sophia Drake.
Let's go. Oh, your last name is Drake?
Yeah, I know.
How do you feel sharing
right
a name with
like,
somebody who's taking L's these days?
Right. No, I literally had Aaron. He goes, because I invited him to go to TC with us. And he's like, sorry. And I was like, do you want to sit together with me and my friends? He's like, sorry, we don't sit with Drake.
Oh,
I was like, cool, okay. It was a pretty cool name, last name to have. Until Kendrick Lamar happened. So, but yeah, so Sophia Drake is my name. I think it's pretty rememberable. Like, I haven't met someone that is like, I don't remember you.
At least if you can't remember Sophia, you can for sure remember Drake.
Yeah, for sure.
How would you feel if somebody called you by your last name?
I have actually. People would call me like Drake Snowflake, or I'm super pale. So that, or like, I remember some people would call me. Well, I was a teacher, so my name was Miss Drake.
Oh,
so that was pretty cool. I think a lot of kids liked me just because it was pretty cool. I think kids really liked me because of that.
So where you from? How did you get here?
So
like, where you from? How was your childhood?
So I was adopted from Latvia. It's over in Eastern Europe. It's a super small country. From the capital Riga,
Okay.
and it's over by Russia. If no one knows where that is, it's one of the Baltic Sea states. So when the reason I was adopted from over there was because my parents couldn't have kids.
Okay.
So any of you that cannot have kids, adoption is not out of the picture.
Right.
Go adopt. It's the best thing that's ever happened.
You can
to
still
me.
have kids.
Yeah,
It's
you
just,
can
it
still
won't
have
be
kids.
yours.
It's
See?
like, how
Right.
bad do you want them? Like, yeah. So my parents were looking into adopting actually from Russia,
Mhm.
but there was this missionary that came to visit the church, and they were like, hey, there are a bunch of kids that need to be adopted from Latvia. And honestly, Latvia is a super poor country even to this day. The USSR just messed up that entire economy. So so they adopted me. It took about a year to actually get us. Like, they met us, and then a year later we're actually able to get us, which is actually a pretty long time for overseas
How old are you at
adoptions.
the time?
By the time I got to America, I was like 4.5, turning 5.
Okay.
So but they met me when I was like 3.5.
So you didn't know about the process of the adoption. You were just a kid, right?
No, it's actually, I don't know if it's because it was so life changing, and I think the Lord's also blessed me with a really good memory that, like, I remembered so much that happened.
So you knew that
we were getting adopted.
Really?
Yes.
At the age of 3?
Because
Wow.
what happened was, so nothing is ever yours in the orphanage. So like when you leave the orphanage, like your parents have to actually like bring you your own clothes, because those clothes that you were wearing gets passed down to the next kid. So
but
they gave me a stuffed elephant, and they were like, hey, we love you, we're gonna come back for you. And it was like that gift, like receiving that gift was essentially saying they were coming back for me and my brother. And so and I believe that, and then they did, even though it took an entire year. And I just remember the plane ride, and it was just chaotic. My brother we were in New York. He got like lost in an elevator, made like the entire airport stop. He screamed so loud you could hear it through like the ducts. Yeah, it was wild. Man. Yeah, everyone just looked up, and we're all like running like up the stairs to go get him. And yeah, but so yeah, growing up, I was adopted into a Christian household. Went to a private school growing up. So because I was super sheltered when I hit high school, I had massive like culture shock. I really didn't understand like how certain things looked. So I wasn't popular in middle school. Like, I was, even though I think I was cute, like a lot of guys would not date me because I was super annoying. Because I actually had guys tell me that. They're like, like, I liked you, but you know, it's not cool to date you. So
how
sorry.
Pause. How annoying do you have to be for somebody not to date you?
I don't know. Anyone from my middle school
how
class.
Annoying was you? Like, was he just in class?
I'm so talkative. All right, like what you see now is like the toned down version.
Come on.
As crazy as it is to believe, but I was like so much more loud. I don't know. Like it was not controlled. Wow. And now I actually have the Holy Spirit to be like shut my mouth. So
what do you think was the reason of being loud? Because there was always something that makes somebody do something.
Right. Yeah, so I was a super insecure kid. Like when I first moved to America, like people actually made fun of me, like for the fact I couldn't speak English very well, because it was a second language by the time I got here. So I actually learned how to speak English watching High School Musical. Shout out to Sharpay Evans.
Come on.
But,
I need to start watching High School Music for my
like
English to get better.
When they say like foreigners like watch American movies to learn like dialogue, that's exactly what I did. But English was super hard for me, and there are still words that I will not say. Because like I can't say them still. But yeah, no, people just like, because I am so pale. Like I got a lot of like criticism, and I don't know. It was just I was constantly. I feel like from a young age, Satan really used a lot of people around me to discourage me. I love my parents, and honestly, I am who I am and so strong because of them. But also, I had to deal with growing up like, oh, I'm good, but I'm not great. There was like I'm not good enough. So like I grew up competitively ice skating. Like I was gonna go to the Olympics. Like I tell people that all the time. Like
Right.
I was ready. I was doing like Olympic training during summer camps over
When
at
did
the
you
Toyota
start
Center.
doing ice skating?
Ice skating was actually it was like around 7 because my brother and I were not used to the California heat.
Right. Does it snow in Latvia?
It's only freezing
Snow?
out there.
Oh,
Like
for real?
a heat
Okay,
wave
so
is
it
like
makes sense.
72 degrees. So when it came like 90, me and my brother were like paralyzed. Like we couldn't move. And so my mom was trying to find an activity for us to do. So there was an ice rink nearby and we were just naturals. Like there was this coach that I had forever, Steve. He's like
Shout out
number
to Steve.
1 in California for moves in the field. So
And
you
he
have
was
to
gonna go to the Olympics.
Yes, like I was hardcore training for that. Like I was working on my triples and stuff. Now girls are doing quads, but at the time, by the age of 18, I would have been Olympic qualified because at the time you had to be an adult to be an Olympian. Now you can be younger, which is crazy. But
how did it work? How did that go with the Olympics?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Like, was you able to go there or?
So you have to go through testing.
Okay.
So there's moves in the fields and then there's like the free skates. So you have to pass both to go up a level. So it goes from pre-preliminary all the way through senior. So essentially when you hit the senior, that's when you were able to go to the Olympics.
Okay.
And one focuses on edge work and footwork while the free skate works on like jump spins and the creativity part of that. So you have to essentially pass each level in both of those fields to be able to go. So by the time I had quit, I was at my junior moves and working on my junior free skate.
Okay.
So, and I was 16, going to be turning 17 when I quit. So I know, it's like right there on the edge and just left due to caring about people's opinions.
For real?
Yeah, so I got into my first relationship around that time I had quit, and
you were 16 at this time.
Yeah, and yeah. Going back to a little bit of growing up, I was super loud and annoying and obnoxious because, I wanted to feel seen and feel heard because I didn't feel that way growing up. Always kind of felt like there wasn't really much for me to offer other than like my talent and my looks. And so I felt like I overcompensated by trying to put my personality like in your face. Because I'm like, well, you aren't seeing anything else, so let me try to get more of me and like who I am, but it kind of went across the wrong way. So in high school, because of this in middle school, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to be that cute, quiet girl that will like be shy, but that didn't quite happen. Could not stay cocooned. And high school, as I said, I went through private school all the way through middle school. So from pre-kindergarten through 8th grade, I was sheltered in a private school. And so when I went to public school, for the first time in my life, boys were interested in me. And so I only had experience in middle school dating or what I saw around me. So, but I didn't understand how like the public school mind works, like the secular world mind works, because I would date people for like 3 to 4 weeks maybe, and I'd break up. But everyone assumed like I was sleeping with everybody I was dating freshman year. But my mind never went there because what's that? Didn't even know what sex was until I became a freshman in high school. And then here I am hearing that I'm having sex when I have no idea what that is.
For real. Actually, I relate to that. I relate to that because I didn't know that. Yo, this is gonna be crazy. Because
I'm rated R. My wife's rated R. FYI, people.
bro, I didn't know that to have a baby you had to have sex until I was in high school.
Right. No, my mom said it like when I was in elementary school. She's like, "Oh, you do a special hug," and then the next day in second grade, I was running around trying to hug all these boys, like trying to do this special hug.
But at least in white household, you can talk about that. But well, probably in American household, but in African household, you don't talk about sex with your parents. So I didn't hear it from my parents.
No,
I heard
it's
it.
Christians that don't talk about it.
True.
That's literally what I've noticed. Any religious, it's not even that. I think it's just people that are grown up in the religious, like Muslim, Christian, Jewish, like whatever. I feel like a lot of them, they just avoid that talk because how do you tell a kid, "Oh, it's great, it feels wonderful," but don't do it?
But it's crazy because I didn't hear it from my parents. I heard it from my friends. So that's different because a parent could tell you it's good, but don't do it. Your friend will tell you it's good and do it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's you're like, okay, I guess let's go.
Right.
Like, wow, I'm just hearing this fun thing. I didn't know it existed, and I
Right.
want to discover about it. How do we do it? What do you do? How do you start? How do you get a girl to sleep with you? So
It was it's just no, it's wild because I remember. So I learned about what sex was like freshman year, but I also remember like when I went to people in church about it. This is what I learned, and this is why I didn't do it for till I got an older boyfriend my sophomore year, or the end of sophomore year. Was two things: you get pregnant and your life's over, or you'll get AIDS and you'll die. Like that, it didn't teach me, the church didn't teach me why I should wait. It just made me scared enough to wait. And so then when the opportunity arose later with that guy that I dated for like 2.5 years, who is also one of the reasons that I ended up quitting ice skating, because I cared more about what he thought, because I gave that part of myself to him, that I'm like, oh, I gotta marry this man, so I have to listen to everything he says. Why?
So how was the relationship? How was you guys' relationship?
Oh
how
my
did
gosh.
you start?
Okay, it was okay. So I'm writing a book right now.
Oh, come
so
on.
I kind of talk about it a little bit, but I never learned something that the Lord told me is like rip up the list. So many girls and guys, as controversial as it is, like I had a vision, like him just tearing up my list, and he was showing me that I had created lists subconsciously, and so therefore, like when I was dating those boys my freshman year, I didn't know why I was dating. All I was learning is what I don't like. And so when sophomore year came around and I went through some church hurt and decided, you know what, screw Christian boys, they all suck,
Let's go out in the world.
The worldly guys aren't any, like Christian boys aren't better than worldly guys.
So what was wrong with Christian boys?
Okay, so because of the rumors that were happening my freshman year, I started bleeding into the church I was attending. So moms wouldn't allow their Christian church-going sons to date me. And so what happened was these boys would start to lead me on, and they would like start getting there, and then all of a sudden just back off and like, oh, I can't date you. But I'm cute enough for you to flirt with. I'm cute enough for you to like
not to
like kind of start to do things, and then but not good enough for you to date.
And that will break you, like that will.
Oh yeah. So I was like, well, you're no better than the guys in the world. Like, how are you different? You weren't guarding my heart either. So it was just kind of like, screw it, I'm gonna date someone eventually. And so I learned of what I didn't want, but it didn't quite teach me what I should have like wanted or needed. Still.
Whoa, say that again. So it taught you what you didn't want, but it didn't
tell me what I wanted or should have wanted, or what I needed to. So therefore, when this guy who was older, he was a senior, he was graduating, and I was the end of my sophomore year, what I liked about him would actually be the reasons why we would break up in the future.
Wow.
As ironic is what the Lord showed
What
me.
was that?
So I like the
wanna
fact
hear
he
about it.
was private. He was a quiet guy. He was very private. He was super athletic. He got a basketball scholarship to a school out
I
in
feel like every white girl
Oregon.
likes. Was he black?
No.
Okay. I was about.
But we do. Ain't that right, Kendra?
I was about to say every other white girl likes a black athletic dude.
That was my
Am I
type when I
right?
was in college.
Talk to me in the chat. Talk to me in the chat. Am I right?
That's all my type was when I went to college, bro.
See? I never lied.
He was a 6'6" Hispanic. As crazy it is to imagine.
Come on.
He's a 6'6" Hispanic basketball player. No, he wasn't white though.
Oh,
I've
was,
only-
oh,
I've-
okay.
I've
See?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, my type
Okay.
was clearly athletes because the other guys were not that I liked my freshman year. But anyways, so so he was athletic, super smart. As I said, the thing that I really liked about him was that he was more on the quiet side. Like people like knew him but didn't really know him. And I also like the fact that we were in separate schools because he wasn't hearing all these rumors that were going around me that were untrue, and low-key ended up having 2 mental breakdowns. And the bullying got so excessive that people started like affecting my outside life. So my mom, like, people started egging like my house. Like it got that wild. Like that's the way that my mom figured out that I was being as badly bullied as I was. Like I love my mom. Like we're working on a relationship with boundaries. But she kind of, her and my dad were very much like, my dad kind of was like, it's your fault, if anything. And then, or my mom didn't believe it was as severe as I was being. She thought it was being like dramatic until it started affecting her.
She was like, this is
because her
serious.
car got egged. Her house got egged. And so I had to get like a special letter from the principal to transfer me to a charter school, which, anyways, that's a whole thing. But the reasons why I like this guy would actually end up being reasons why we ended up breaking up. So I said that he was super athletic, which yes, is great. Right. But that quietness ended up making him being able to be really quiet when he cheated on me.
My boy sleep.
Yeah. He was quiet about like cheating on me. Like that I know about 3 girls.
Man.
I don't know how many more there are. I only know about 3
That's all you know.
That's all I know about, or 3 of them.
Man.
But so the quiet part that I liked about him, it was ended up being one of the reasons why we'd end up eventually breaking up.
How did that, like, why did that make you break up?
Because once it got to the point where third time, when I found out about the third person, so I kind of already fell off my relationship with Christ at this point because
you already saved at this time?
I was not. So I knew Jesus, but I stopped really like going to church. Like I was over it because the people at my church were talking about a high school girl and her sex life that was non-existent. So you got
church hurt, huh?
I got church hurt by women, and even my dad. I come to find out, I think it was about a year ago, where one of my guy friends, who I'm still friends with to this day, he goes, you know, like your dad, like he told me this because my dad passed away like a year ago. He goes, your dad was one of the reasons why people thought you were sleeping around. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, your dad was kind of like alluding to you being promiscuous. I was like, that's crazy considering me and my dad don't talk. Like, and so there was a lot of hurt that I had to like move on from that, because not only were there high school girls coming into my church in my youth group saying stuff, but then hearing my dad was telling like the moms, because he was on the orchestra team, so he played the violin, and like he's telling them stuff about my life, true, or things he wasn't even sure about that I never talked to him about.
What was he telling them? Was he like trying to discover if you're doing the thing, or
so as crazy as this is, he's passed away. I forgave him. But there are some things that things that we discovered through his passing that because I'm adopted, my dad had a terrible terrible porn addiction to the point where he was getting scams and threats from people, and he kept paying them out before he died. And
Hold on. For porn?
yes,
Ain't,
it gets crazy.
Ain't
Y'all
porn
stop.
free? Porn is free, right?
But if you want to, there are
like if you want like custom
stuff,
content.
or feel like there are
Okay,
women
gotcha.
actually talking to you, or men that are talking to you, you can pay
Okay,
for that.
OnlyFans in
Yeah,
okay.
like that concept,
Okay.
but way more sketch.
Okay.
So, but what I came to realize, my mom, my brother, and I, was my dad, because of porn, he could not see me like his daughter. So we believe, and I believe, a lot of the reasons he said stuff was he had to keep me at arm's length, which I'm glad, because, you know, there are plenty of guys and girls that, you know, their parents go on them or whatever.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. My dad kept me at arm's length, but he couldn't see me like a daughter. So I think it caused him to see me in a different light. So he reacted, responded to things that a father shouldn't respond to and react that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, when he was talking about that, I'm like, I'm sorry, what dad talks about their daughter's like sexual life unless he's like low-key wanting to think about it, you know? And I think he was trying to do that subtly, unfortunately. So yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of come to that realization. So men, women, stop watching porn.
So let
because
me
it'll
ask you
help.
this:
It'll help.
how do you feel about dads, or like, do you have this void in your heart since you didn't have a birth dad, and the dad who adopted you kept you at arm's length? So did that create like a, because
I was the queen of daddy issues. Like, when me and my first boyfriend broke up due to just him cheating on me and me kind of giving it back to him, and then also college boys, I realized, like, oh, there are more fish in the sea. And there were other guys that were willing to be nicer to me, because my first boyfriend was much more verbally abusive than physically. But like, he would make me stand on a scale and like threaten to break up with me if I passed a certain way. Like, it's crazy. It was wild. And so yes, I went through a lot of daddy issues. I think that's why I sought out love elsewhere. But I will say that that also is a factor, I think, why it's so hard to accept God as your father, for sure, because I'm over here. I think it's been really interesting. I think God kind of will put himself in your life the way that you need to be, like, helped. So when I first got saved, like, I didn't see him as a father. He introduced me more like of a friend.
Okay.
As weird as that is, like, most people like, oh, God the Father. Like, no, he was my friend before I could see him in a father figure, because a friend I felt safer with.
True.
Like, I was able to confide in my guy friends before I could confide in a dad. So the Lord, when I got drastically saved after a drug overdose,
that's good, because he couldn't show up
as a father. Because I couldn't do that. Like, he knows exact.
So he meets you where you are.
Yeah, it's like, you know, God can't meet with you where you pretend to be, you know, but he can meet with you like when you know where you actually are, you know. And it's just crazy. Like, yeah, so and it's funny because I look back at like the 2 serious relationships that I have been in, and it's so funny because you end up picking guys that are just like your dad.
That's crazy. I still don't understand how that works.
Same with guys. Guys pick girls that are so much like their moms. It's like, and I think it's so interesting, and I think that's why people's marriages go down the pooper so quickly nowadays, because it's like, you know, like when a woman nags, you know, that guy, that, like, the guy that's married to that kind of woman, like, sees her as like a mom. What guy wants to F their mom?
Right.
and then vice versa. Like, because this is what I learned with my last boyfriend. Like, I felt like I turned into a mom, right? And so when I
He was
see him,
nurturing
I
you.
was like, I don't want to, because who wants to F their kid? What mom wants to F their
Right.
kid?
No, but
And
yeah.
that's why that relationship gets so, marriages get so thrown off, because a woman nags like a mom,
Yeah.
because the man acts like a kid, and that
Man.
you're
So,
not meant to have a marriage like that, and that's why it's dry.
it's crazy because I heard that like 70% or 90% of the country's problems they are caused because of people not having father figures in their lives. So what ends up happening? The family home will not work. If your family home doesn't work, you go to work and you feel bad. So you're gonna cuss on everybody. You're not gonna do your work as you should be, as it should be done. So if you don't do your work as it should be done, if you're a doctor, somebody's life is gonna be affected because of the root cause of family. Like, so
Something as controversial as it sounds.
Come on.
So I have a birth father.
Okay.
And I have an adopted father.
Okay.
Okay, so this is my whole thing on fatherless homes. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but what I will say is that it is much easier to let go of a birth father that's not around, because it's like, okay, it's like that abandonment, right? However, if you have a father that is representing God terribly, that is terrible to you, that doesn't lift you up, and you see him treating your mother terribly, abusing her financially, physically, emotionally.
Yeah.
I think that is that has more damage than a non-present father.
That's true.
Because
I
not
agree.
only did
I agree.
I stayed in 2 relationships, where one of them was very physical, abusive wise, and then another one that was like psychologically that way. And it's like, what that does to the kid is not only like normalizes, oh, that's normal, and they're still married. So I would rather have an absent father, because my birth father, I'm always like curious, and there's like that abandonment hurt, but you can work through that much easier than having to work through the trauma, the pain, the rejection constantly.
True. Do you know your birth father?
So my birth father passed away.
Okay.
That's actually how they found me and my brother. So we were in this really low income apartment
in Latvia.
In Latvia.
Okay.
Yep. And the neighbors were hearing my brother screaming and crying for like an hour. So they called the cops. The cops finally came. And they are like banging on the door, but no one's answering, but they can hear us, so they have to enter regardless, because obviously there's something going on. Well, when they kicked down the door, my father is dead on that bed.
What killed him? What was the cause of
I
death?
think it's sleep apnea, because my brother...
What is that?
It's essentially where like you have inconsistent breathing, where it like stops you like from breathing. It's people who snore typically have sleep apnea. It's just not as severe. So I think that's the way my father passed away, because my brother deals with that. And honestly, like when they did the autopsy, there wasn't foul play. He wasn't on drugs. He wasn't doing any of that stuff. Like he was just gone. So I would personally rather have just an absent father that I don't really hear from over a father that conditions you to not only skew your view of love and of men, but also of God. So for those women that like have husbands or guys around like their kids, like it is much better for that kid to not be around that father. Because I'm having to unlearn all this stuff.
That's true, because having a father doesn't mean you're safe. Like you have to have a father who's taking care of you. So it's not like you once you have them, you're good. No, they have to make sure that they're doing their job, or make sure they're doing their duties. So having them doesn't mean that you're safe. But also what I heard is in this household that you don't grow up with a father, especially for men. So your role model is supposed to be your dad, right?
Right.
But then you don't have them, so you learning from your mom. But naturally, women are talkative. They talk too much.
My brother's soft because my mom raised him. I understand.
Yeah. So women.
Love my brother, but he's soft. If you met him,
Shout out, brother.
Shout out, Robbie John. He ran for governor in California. Proud sister over here.
Let's go. So you end up getting your traits, your character traits from a woman. So that's why there is a lot of
soft men,
and also anger issues in men. Naturally, men are not angry. We when stuff happens. No, this is real.
Problem solvers typically, you don't
exactly
usually be about it.
Yeah, when something happens, you don't you don't beat somebody. You don't beat your wife when they when they do something wrong. Your first approach is to think about it. What happened? Okay, so how can I cure? We're fixers. We're fixers naturally. But if you grow up without a figure who's a fixer, you take your role model, your mom, who's they go off on everything. Once anything happens, they just start talking.
I go to 0 to 100 real quick. I'm working on that.
Exactly. So that's why we have a lot of men right now, and everything is curable, man. Everything is you can heal, but you have to acknowledge it first. You have to come to this place that you like, man, I need to work on this. But yeah. So how did that Sophia that you telling me turn into this Sophia? What happened? What's the bridge?
Oh my god!
Because I can tell it's clearly two people. Like there's something happened. There's a transformation that happened.
Okay, let me I'll give you the fast version of my testimony real quick so you kind of understand where I used to be and where I am now. So as I said, grew up in a Christian household. High school, culture shock, got bullied a ton. That was brought into the church, the safe place I was supposed to go to. Had a youth group leader. She didn't know I was in the back of a van at winter camp laying down because I got car sick. And she was talking trash about me to one of the other leaders. And she goes, "Where's Sophia?" And I sit up and she went, "Ghost."
No way.
And
that's a movie,
the
bro.
worst part? My life is a movie, man. The youth pastor, the other leader told the youth pastor what happened. And this lady didn't even apologize to me. She had the youth pastor had to go to me and be like, "I'm sorry, I'm having her apologize." And I was like, I was thinking, I don't even want this lady's apology because she didn't apologize.
I don't know if I need an apology.
Like, it was like a whole week after the incident. And you knew this lady did not want to apologize to me. And so got church hurt, decided to just be like, screw it all. Like, Christians suck. Like, this is literally the youth group was called, like, the slogan was "You belong." And I literally I looked at the youth pastor, was like, it's so ironic that our catchphrase is "You belong," but that is far from how you treated me.
Man.
And the fact he didn't fire her. She's a leader. Like, she wasn't even being paid to be a leader. She was a volunteer.
We need to pause right here and tell all these leaders, anybody. It's not like just leaders.
Why are you talking trash about high schoolers?
That's not what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, make sure you go back to your fundamental vision and calling, and like the slogan and everything they believed in was "You belong." But as time goes by, you forget. You forget that that's what God called you to do, and then you start chasing maybe growing your team or getting more kids, but you forget he called you. If he's sending one kid, make sure he belongs.
I was gonna say, it kind of goes back to like why Israel kept sliding back so bad, because they forgot. The reason why they kept screwing up and getting reconquered over and over was because they couldn't remember where God brought them or what the original assignment was, because the current circumstances outweighed like what he had already done. And so it's like, that's what we tend to do, and even ministry tends to do, is like, okay, this is what I'm about, but because all these other things are happening, it's like you forget to look back.
You have to stick to the plan.
I mean, David had to constantly, like, if you look at David, like, the reason he had to encourage himself, and the way that he would encourage himself when things looked bleak was by reflecting on what God has already done.
That's some bars right
You
there. Because
know,
the most important part of worship, for you to worship God, you have to remind yourself of what he did, because it's not going to feel every time like worshiping. You're not going to feel like worshiping God every time.
Oh no.
But you know, he
I will sit down
you.
and still sing.
Exactly. And you know, he created you to worship him. So you got to remind yourself at some point, you like, I don't feel like worshiping him, but man, he's been so good to me. And I don't have to fake my worship. I can just tell him, I feel bad right now, but thank you for what you've done already.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be totally hot over here. Humble, open, and transparent. Yes. Shout out to Pastor Mike.
Yes, sir.
Or Tim Ross. I don't know who started that. But anyways.
No, Tim Ross is
but the thing about God is, what I learned from David is that God is okay with you screaming at him. I remember I was in the car and I wanted an answer so bad. I had told everyone else why I was mad. Everybody else but God. And I remember driving and I'm like, what the heck? I was like, I was like, I need you to, God, I don't need you to be like my earthly father. I was like, I don't need you to be like my earthly father who ignored me and never helped me. You were going to talk to me and I expect you to talk to me. Why don't you think I'm ready for this?
And he was like, I like this.
And
I'm about to come through.
He goes, I just wanted you to tell me that you were angry. Right. And from there, like, he answers those, like, and it's just crazy because, like, we're so scared. We think, like, oh my gosh, we have to always see God like, oh, you're so perfect and amazing and you're like so good. And he's all of those things, but your circumstances might not be. And that's okay to express that to God. I think so much and that's the thing, is so many people, I feel like more people see him like God the Father where they can't tell him that. That's why I'm so fortunate that when I was introduced to God, he was my friend. Because I'm over here, like, the way I talk to Kendra is the way I will talk to God. I'll be like, dude, I'm so over this crap. I feel like I'm constantly dying. Like,
he just cheated on me again. I can't believe it. Whoa.
Right. So, no, but that's the thing, is like, going back to my testimony, because I feel like I keep going like,
no, you're good.
No, so because I grew up, like, the church teaches you to see him like a father and not a friend first, which I think is a problem.
Yeah. I feel like that was the old school church. There was like, you gotta see him as but I mean, he is,
but like, when you're,
and
it's so funny because I was super self-righteous growing up because of that. I was like, oh, I'm better. Like, that's crazy. I remember seeing like high school kids like smoking like vapes.
It was like,
I was like, oh my god,
you sinners are going
vape?
to hell.
You're so
to
cool.
The pit.
Like, I was so sarcastic. I was like, oh, we get it. Like, you're super cool. You vape. Like, I remember being so like stupidly self-righteous. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot, if you're growing up in the church, I think that is the hardest thing, is to not be self-righteous.
To know that you are a sinner as well. That you're not vaping.
Even though you don't,
you're thinking bad of your pastor.
It's like the Lord had to point out, like, he was like, you're so angry at your father, like my earthly father. He goes, but also you sin in the same areas. Just because the sin looks different doesn't mean you're not sinning in the same area. So, like, my dad was addicted to pornography, but I was addicted to literally having sex. Like, you know what I'm saying? And the Lord was showing me, he's like, oh, just because you don't do the same sin the same way doesn't mean you're not both sinning in that same area. You're not
any better.
Right. And so it's kind of like, okay, you're over here like looking at that person that's vaping in your church parking lot. But last time I checked, you're going to go eat ice cream or some potato, like an entire bag of potatoes, chips, watching Netflix. Like, when I used to vape, like, I hit that vape as much as some people put a potato chip in their mouth. So it's like just because it's not to you, it doesn't look the same, but to God, it's the same. Exactly. You overeating is the same as you smoking. True. So, anyways, going back. So, grew up self-righteous, got hurt by those same self-righteous people. And decided, like, screw it, I'm gonna go with worldly guys, because at least Like, when they lead me on, I kind of know why, whatever.
Right.
So
At least
it made no sense. It made no sense at the time. I'm in high school. I'm a 15-year-old girl.
At least we're not gonna meet in the Bible study after doing the.
Right. I was one of those like hot or cold people. Like, I always read in the scriptures like, don't be lukewarm. So how I saw that scripture, I was like, fine, I'm all out for God, because being lukewarm, what's the point? That's how I felt about it. So when I like really decided to leave church, I left it.
Right.
And so then I started college. Me and my first boyfriend broke up, and I think because I no longer had Christ as my center and he was my center, he had high standards for me. So that's the reason why I genuinely believe that I didn't smoke when I was in high school. I genuinely believe that's why I didn't hook up with guys, because I had one man and all this other stuff. And so I think he helped me with my moral compass, as crazy it is. If God's not your moral compass, the guy that you're dating will become your moral compass. Because the reason why I know that is because after me and this guy broke up, what was the first thing that I did? What were my friends' moral compasses? Oh, they're sleeping around with guys they meet at the club.
And
oh, okay, that's normal. Oh, these basketball guys from college, they like me. They tell me I'm pretty when I'm feeling the worst about myself. Oh, okay, that's my moral compass. Like, you pick your moral compass based on the people you're around. Like, the more that something's normalized, like, the less bad it seems. And that's why I think people that have grown up in the Christian lifestyle and don't ever fall off, which good for you guys. I will say, though, they have a hard time understanding that when you aren't a believer anymore, you don't have the Holy Spirit to tell you what's right and wrong. So you're having to look at your friends and the world around you to tell you what's right and wrong. So sleeping around, at one point I was like, who cares?
Right.
Everyone's doing it, right? And so your moral compass is like, well, as long as I'm not being a home wrecker.
Exactly.
As long as I'm not cheating. As long as I'm blah, blah, blah. Like, that at least complex. The at least means bare minimum. God didn't call us to be bare minimum, by the way.
No.
When you go like, well, at least I don't drink 5 days a week. At least I don't smoke weed throughout the week. I just smoke it on the weekends. That at least complex that a lot of Christians are in. Or at least I don't watch porn. At least I don't blah, 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 blah. That is the bare minimum. God didn't call us to be bare minimum. He gave us a spirit of excellence. So what are you doing the bare minimum? So, so fell off, got into clubbing really hard.
Like how hard? Like every day, every other day.
So it started off when
48 hours in the club.
I'd be like 24 hours at times. So it kind of started off.
How do you do 24 hours?
No,
like, aren't you supposed to go out like around 10 o'clock, 10 at night, and then go home at 3 a.m.?
Yeah.
So how do you do 24 hours? You stay there?
Yeah.
After everybody?
So you go to after parties. So there's parties at the club, and then you go to after parties. True. Yeah. So let me kind of explain how it got like progressively worse. So sin never stays where you put it, for sure.
You said what?
Sin never stays where you put it.
It grows, huh?
It continues.
It's like
and
cancer.
It's so subtle. It is so subtle. Like, it took me 3 years to get me to live in my car, strung out, and bailing my ex-boyfriend out of jail. That didn't happen overnight. I didn't wake up one day just think, I'm going to smoke meth today. Like, you don't ever get there. When my mom used to tell me that in high school, I was like, no, duh. Like, of course you don't just wake up, I'm going to have sex and get pregnant today. Like, no, you don't ever wake up and say that stuff. Slow. It starts with the little steps. Man. So after me and my boyfriend broke up, I fell into vaping. And then that was the first thing I ever did was vape.
How did you start vaping? You was like, is it
cool?
So
I had a girlfriend, my mom, who swore she was the devil. It is so funny. I thought she was crazy. But
you said you had a girlfriend, or your mom had a girlfriend?
I had a girlfriend. Girl who was a friend. Sorry, let me make that clear. I was not lesbian.
Yeah, I was about.
But my mom did not like her.
Okay.
And she's like, I literally felt like I was sitting across from Satan. And I, like, mind you, at this point I've walked away from the faith, and so I'm like, you're crazy. She's the only girlfriend that I have. Screw off. Well, literally, she was my gateway person into what eventually would end up being where I got, which is, so she started me with vaping because I was so stressed about my first breakup. She's like, hey, this will calm you down. And all of a sudden I had a placebo effect happen to me about vaping. Anytime I'd vape, I think I was calming down because I was watching a cloud come out of my mouth. So I began vaping. And then that led me into really getting into more of the clubbing lifestyle. And so from there, I would, because I love the party atmosphere.
So did you go out
on weekends? So I started going through Thursday through Saturday. All night. Yeah. So I started clubbing on Thursday nights through Saturday nights. And from there, I would then open up my home when my parents were out of town with my brother, because he was a synchronized skating on a national team.
Yeah.
So he was doing really great in that. So I would have home alone. Mind you, I didn't smoke weed at this point. I was just vaping. I didn't even drink. But never stays where you put it. So I had a house party, and I remember I was sitting in a circle, and I had a bong, and everyone was like, do it. I'm not, talk about peer pressure at its finest. I had like 10 people chanting.
My friend's right there, Grant. He always says, show me your friends, I'll show you a future.
Literally. Well,
shout out to Grant.
So I had like 10 people chanting, do it, do it, do it. So the peer pressure got to me, and I was like, okay, fine. So I smoked weed. Well, I got so high. Apparently I'd posted on my social media, and like random people started showing up, like trying to like go to this party.
So they were chanting for you to do what?
To smoke to smoke weed. Because at this point I was a vapor and I was scared of anything. Wow. Remember, like, this is the whole issue with Christians. They scare you into not doing something more than they teach you why. Like, that's why I think it's so important to have a relationship with Christ, because then, like, once that fear is shown as not as bad as you need it to be, it's like, it's who's lying here?
And I think the problem of that is because our Christianity stays in the same way, because when you are young, it's hard to explain to you why sex is bad. So parents have to tell you,
make you scared. Like, you're gonna get AIDS and die.
Yeah, but at some point, that's all they can tell you, right? But it's supposed to grow. Your understanding is supposed to grow. I just said on my last podcast, anything that stays in the same way, it gets bad. If you put water in a cup and leave it there, it gets stagnant, right? So
gets lukewarm.
At some point, that it helps. Because when I was like 7 years old, they couldn't explain to me why sex is bad, so they had to tell me, just don't do it. And that's at that time, at that time it's fair, but it's supposed to grow,
Right.
So so you smoke.
So I started smoking weed.
How does weed feel? I haven't smoked.
I think what's interesting is what I've noticed, the best thing I've ever heard is that you always try to chase the first original high you've ever had, and you'll never have that high again.
Really?
Yes. The first time you do any drug, you'll never experience it like that.
Because that's the first time.
It's because it's the first time. So the first time, I remember feeling like I was on a cloud, like, it made me giggly. I was chilling. And by the way, I gained.
This is heaven.
I went to 200 pounds because I smoked so much weed that I was eating so much. Like, I could tell you what my stoner order was. Okay, let me give it to you. At the time, McDonald's used to do breakfast sandwiches all day, 24 hours. I miss those days.
Right.
I would order a 10-piece nugget, extra crispy, large French fry, 2 sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffins, and a large sweet tea. And you best believe I could finish that stoned.
That can last me a week.
No, and I ate that all in one thing. And so I became like a massive, massive stoner. And from there, that same girl that got me into vaping was the same girl that got me in my last relationship, which was where I really hit my rock bottom. So she knew this guy who got out of jail. This is how you know you're broken as a girl, when the idea of a bad boy sounds good to you. Any girls that are like, oh, like, I just like those bad boys. Like, if you're not attracted to a guy that respects you, is on time, is kind to you, that seems boring to you. You know why? Because you're toxic. You're attracted to toxic people
Boom. We
because
need to drop some
you
effect right there.
are
Boom.
toxic. Fun fact, you're toxic. Because I kid you not, I remember saying this when this girl was like, well, I know this really nice guy who just got out of jail. I look at her, I'm like, what? And she goes, well, he got out of jail.
You was like, that's my dream boyfriend.
I literally go there. I go like this, like, show me a picture. So she shows me a picture, and I fall in love with his hair.
Black dude, huh?
No.
Oh, okay.
Crazy. It was a white boy. And that
Wow.
was not my type. That was not what I would typically go for.
But you was like, he's
I don't
from
really
prison.
have one,
He's
though.
a bad, he's a
No,
bad boy.
literally, I was like, oh, I love his hair. And then so she tells me, like, why he's in jail. Or, like, why he was getting out. I was like, ooh, I love me a jailbird. I remember saying that. And I was like, introduce me. So
Wow.
we get introduced, and this is where my world starts to shift because, mind you, I'm still pretty sheltered. Like, even in the drug scene, like, no one ever offered me cocaine. As crazy as it is. I was like 2 years in, and no one ever offered me anything other than weed. Like, I never got offered cocaine, ecstasy, no, nothing. So, didn't know anything outside of weed and nicotine, even in the clubbing environment. So, we start dating, and he was the first guy that was nice to me. Isn't that crazy? How, like, because I was used to guys. Part of it, like, sometimes I was okay with, but a lot of times I wasn't. A lot of these guys, what I've noticed is that porn really changes how you love people. Because this guy that I ended up dating for over 3 years, this jailbird drug addict.
3 years?
For over 3 years.
So
and no one knew.
You guys was
we
on
were,
it.
we were very on and off, but we were more on than off ever. Like, I think the longest we were ever off was like 3 weeks. Was
that the best relationship by far at the time?
I think the longest, do you mean?
No, the best. Like,
I would say yes and no, because, okay, this is my whole point about pornography. Okay. So the guys that I was with before, and my first relationship that I had for about 2.5 years, I didn't know that girls could, like, go.
Watch porn?
No, I didn't know girls could, like, nut. Like, I didn't know girls could, like...
What does that mean? I don't know.
Orgasm. I didn't know girls could orgasm.
Oh, for real?
Because that never happened to me.
Had you had sex before that?
Yes! With plenty of dudes. I'm not trying to sound like a hoe, but I'm just telling you. I didn't know.
Dang.
I didn't know until my last boyfriend.
So you was like, what is this? What is this?
No, it was wild. And I think that's why I stayed so long. Because get this. Because all these guys were always so selfish and they didn't care about me. I was like, oh yeah, sex is great. It feels good. Cool. Oh, I'm good at it. Like, I knew I was good at it. So, like, I was like, I enjoyed more of the idea that, like, oh, I'm rememberable to you in that sense. That I was okay if nothing happened to me. So you was just trying to please them. I was just trying to do my job so no one would say anything bad about me. My job is crazy. And so when this guy came around, like, mind you, I was like 200 pounds at this point because I was eating all my McDonald's when I was stoned. Right. That he still made me feel beautiful. And he did not pressure me. I genuinely, like, that's really interesting, as sex has taught men to be really aggressive in bed too. And it was like the first time that I had a man, like, look at me, and so he was a good dude. He was a good dude at heart. I think that drugs make you not who you are. Okay. What you trying to say? So he was a really sweet guy at heart. And I remember the moment I nutted, like, all of a sudden I could not leave him no matter what. And it was crazy because, so mind you, I didn't know up until this point though he was doing drugs. See, every time we were meeting up, it'd be at night. Ladies, stop meeting up, guys. Only at night. Failure. Anyways, he would always be like nodding off. Really? And I didn't know why, because mind you, I only know about weed. And after 4 to 5 months of us dating, I then find out this man is using fentanyl and meth. He was like, put me on. No, and no, he was such a good dude and to the point where he was like, no, like he would not let me try
Wow.
nothing.
Shout out to
Well, because it
to
ruined his
him.
life because he started using heroin at 16 and switched to fentanyl, I think when he was like 17 or 18. And so he really didn't want me to fall into the lifestyle that he was in.
Fentanyl is like
way higher
okay.
than heroin. Actually, what's crazy is he's worse on heroin than he's on fentanyl. That's a long story.
So now you're attached to him.
So I'm attached
Big
to him
soul
because
tie right there.
soul tie because not only is he the first guy to make me nut, but like he was also the nicest one to me.
You was like, this combo is crazy.
And then so when I find out about these drugs, like I remember that's when I was like going like really back and forth. And so when there was these guys, there were these guys that, you know, I was still going clubbing and going out, and he didn't really care.
I think stay at home or for real?
Or in my car.
Wow.
And he was a very secure guy.
Oh,
like
you will go out and he will stay in the car waiting for you?
Yes, or
that's crazy.
Or would be like at the park or something. Yeah, I would just give him like weed or something, and then he would just go smoke all night until I got done. I know a lot of people didn't know we were together. Like most of my, it's crazy. A lot of people, I never posted about him. No, nothing.
Did you?
I try to look single because listen. The reason why
I was about to ask.
The reason why was because I knew I couldn't be with this drug addict. But I don't have better options, but I need to seem open enough so if a better option comes my way, I can jump on that. Right. So this is what I would do. So I would like, if there was a guy that was a potential in my head, I would then like kind of be like, okay, we're on a break. And so I'd go try to figure it out. And then like me and this guy would like get together, and it was like, oh, it's all about him. Let me go back.
So did you get?
So he was I kept going. He was someone I knew that would not leave me. Wow. And the same thing is what's terrible about our arrangement was not only would I know that he would come back if I left him, but he knew that I would come back too.
What's
because
this
I would buy. He was broke. Okay. He was broke. Had no job, and we started to live in my car together.
Wow.
And so
how would you guys do that?
We had a Tempur-Pedic mattress topper, 4 pillows, a sleeping bag, and then blankets. And we put down the back 2 seats to make it as flat as possible. It's pretty comfy. I could probably do it again. Wow. But what ends up happening is that because he has no job, I'm taking care of everything. So I'm buying his drugs.
So he didn't have a place to stay? So you
No, the moment his grandma found out I found out about his drug addiction, she goes, "That's your problem now." Dang. And she knew I couldn't leave because of who I am. My character, even when I was on drugs, I don't want to be like, I'm better than now, but there are so many drug addicts because I knew gang affiliated people. I knew drug addicts all the time because that's all I ended up being around at one point. Was they were liars, stealers, cheaters, and I couldn't get as bad as that because I had grown up. Like when God says like train your child in the way that they should go, like it was so ingrained in me on how to treat people, and that I couldn't be as bad as I could have been. Does that make sense?
Yeah, good.
But yeah, so his grandma essentially like pushed him out on me, and the reason why he wasn't leaving was because I was buying his fentanyl, I was buying his meth, I was buying, when it came down to like his socks, anything he owned, I bought. So I was a functioning addict. That's when it's dangerous, is when you can be a functioning addict. But what ends up happening is because I'm like trying to find something better, there was this guy that came along, so fine, such a good looking dude, and he was like, oh, I'm sober now, and I'm like, great, okay, let me try getting with this guy. So I like leave my ex I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try dating this guy, and he was like, don't do it. He got this girl strung out, and she's currently in jail, and I looked her up, and she is in jail. I don't know if she is now, But he was telling me how this guy, don't trust this guy. And I wouldn't listen to him. I wanted to be out of that relationship so bad because after you get through the honeymoon period,
Oh, there's a honeymoon.
oh, for sure. It took about 7-8 months before my last ex-boyfriend would like be psychotic on me. I mean, granted, I was psychotic at the time too because I literally had bipolar depression. So I was constantly in a psychosis, either super high or super low in my emotions. So we were not easy to get with, but he was very, very mean, very manipulative. Like, he even threw himself out of my moving vehicle when I was like, I can't be with you. He's like, I'll kill myself. And I was like, no, you won't. No, you won't. Opens my moving car door, just
Wow.
like, just.
So what did you do? Like,
right, I stayed with him. What do you think I did?
Right. Man.
3 years, man. Okay, well, so I'm trying to get out of this relationship. This really hot looking guy like comes in my life, and I'm like, oh, he's trying. He's sober. Maybe. Well, this would be the man that would end up drugging me, and is the reason why